Eva and Christine, thank you so much for coming on to Indie Inclinations. I know everybody's really busy, so it's amazing that we can all get coordinated and get on here. Whoa, go team. So I know you're both obviously filmmaker, directors, and writers. That's how I know you. But I also know that you've started Screenplay Press. And it's a very interesting concept. And I'm not going to introduce it. I'm going to let you talk about it because you will explain it better. But I wanted to know, well, first of all, what it is for everybody watching, and then why you went off and did this.
Screenplay Press is a publishing company for feature film scripts that have not yet been made into films. And it was something that Ava and I began in summer of 2022.
The reason we began it, we met for coffee and we were talking about two projects we had that almost were made into films and that weren't, and how proud we were of the screenplays. And then we started thinking, of how many thousands of amazing scripts are out there that have been written but have never been made into movies, so no one knows they exist. And then we said, why can a script only exist in the world if it's turned into a film? Like if you think of plays for the theater, they're published as books and sold in bookstores and read by readers, regardless of whether or not those people go to see it performed on the stage. And we said, why can't a screenplay be a literary work, in its own right, that can exist without the film adaptation of it?
I think that's a great thing. I think it's very unique and kind of what I like about it. I mean, this is me, me, I'm like indie film world. I'm not so industry, not that I'm against it. It's nothing like that. It's just not where I tend to be. But it's kind of going against the industry, right? Because most people, it's like, well, I can't let anybody read it because, it might get out there and I need to get an agent and then they need to put it in front of somebody and I have to just wait for other people. And really, as an independent artist, yes, of course, you are publishing it. You're dealing with all the stuff that, a writer may not know how to get it up online and how to get it printed as a book and laying it out and all that. And you're helping them, but you're helping the artists get their own work out there.
By publishing your scripts as books and getting them out there, you are protecting your work more. It's actually the opposite, because when you send it off to, you send it to producers or you send it to competitions, a lot of times you don't know who's reading it and you have no, there's no record that they're reading it. And, here you're publishing it as a book, so it's already like IP. You have intellectual property that's out there. Even if you have an agent, you still can't just be like, oh, please give my screenplay to this famous actor, or and they're necessarily going to do it. That's not necessarily the case. And then there's also the actors' agents that are also intercepting and controlling what projects they're bringing to their clients. So here also we want to create an archive or a library of great scripts. There are going to be different genres, different demographics. We're going to go back and forth with each edition of 6. And where directors and producers and actors and, people can go and say, oh, I am looking for some great comedies or horror films or projects written by women or projects written by, Latinx writers. And then they'll be able to find them here without having all those agents and all those middlemen.
We're trying to change the way film scripts get circulated because right now, like Ava said, there are all these gatekeepers, and trying to get your agent to send it to another actor's agent or whomever is very difficult. And if you don't have an agent, it's pretty impossible. And then it has nothing to do with how good your script is. So many film scripts don't get made into films, and that has nothing to do with the content. It could do with the budget requirements. It could do with the political ideas. It could do with just the basic fact that Hollywood studios do not think it's going to make money. And we're trying to give these scripts an opportunity to get exposure enough that maybe the person who has an agent who doesn't want them to do it might want to do it. There are people in film that do make movies because they love it.
Yeah, I mean, also what I think is fascinating, I'm just going to throw this out there, is that There is something to be said, like, I've read many plays that I have never seen performed, and I have them in my head, like, I've seen them because I've imagined them, and there's something to be said, I don't think many people have the experience of reading a screenplay before it gets put on screen, right? You can read the book before and have your own idea, but you don't just get to say, "Hey, if I was writing this, yeah, if I was putting this out there, what would it look like to me?" Without realizing you're doing that. I mean, you're just reading and you're seeing it for yourself. And there's something to be said for people imagining it and having that possibility on its own, regardless of what happens. I mean, certainly I get what you're saying, and I hope things get picked up. I mean, we all want to get funded, we all want to get our films out there. So let me just ask a quick question about submissions, just because I think our viewers would be interested, because I believe, and I could be wrong, but I believe it's free to submit.
Right now, we already have our script submissions for the next round, but we update our website regularly. And anyone looking to submit can just check our website, screenplaypress.com. When we do have our 6 selected scripts, the way we handle the printing process is we ask the writers if they are interested in printing scripts in either a count of 50 or a count of 100. And we do ask the writers to pay for the printing costs. Me and Ava do all the layout, the graphic design, the website, and the selling and the shipping and packaging. But the printing costs are actually not so expensive. It's about $4 a book, give or take a few cents, depending on how many pages. And that's all that we ask the writers to cover. And then they recoup their costs before we share anything, before anyone else sees a profit. So the money goes right back to the writers as soon as they sell those copies.
So basically, if I paid for, I'm just going to be a random writer here. I pay for 50 copies. Let's say they sell, I'm going to make my money back on those for those 50 copies, and then anything that's beyond my money gets shared, which is fair, right?
Mhm.
But I'm gonna, that's what I need to do. I probably don't even need to sell all 50 to make the money back, because the price is obviously higher than $4 for a book. Nobody's charging $4 for a book, I'm guessing. I mean, a
Right. The
printed book.
price is, we charge $9.99 per book. And those are the printed copies. And then we also sell ebooks on Amazon for half that. So once the $200, if you have 50 copies printed, it's $200. And once that is recouped through the sales, it all goes right back to the writer. And then when any proceeds after that, any profits are shared 50-50 between Screenplay Press and the writers. The writer gets 50%.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think that's very fair. And I think, you're basically saying, if you ask to have 50 books printed and you sell 25, you're going to make your money back. You only have to sell half of them, and hopefully people have enough fans out there to cover that. I think most people do. So I think that that's a very fair thing. And I love the ebook thing, because I have to say, I know you love books, and I do too, but I know I know Christine has a million books. I don't think anybody owns more books than her, but and as much as I'd like them, I don't have room for that in my life. So an ebook is great because I can take it with me on one thing. I have my whole library, and I kind of like, there's something nice too about knowing you have your books with you wherever you go. You announce when people can submit, and you put out 6 screenplays every quarter, every half year. What are you
We're
at
gonna
this time?
yeah, we're gonna be publishing in batches of 6, and it's gonna be, at least 3 times a year. So we published our first 6 in August, and the first 6 were different genres, but all written by women. So we have The Mama Songs by Annie Howell, which is a comedy. We have Everybody Gets Killed by Enid Zentelis, which is a thriller. And we have Animalia by me, Ava Aridjis, which is kind of sci-fi.
We have Before I Sleep by Jan Eliasberg, What's This Shit Called Love by Evgenia Perez, and then my script, Young Monsters.
This first batch of 6 scripts that we published are all by female directors who are hoping to direct these screenplays they wrote. But, this is also very much for people who just identify as screenwriters as well, you know, who aren't necessarily directors or filmmakers, who just want to get their work out there because, you know, any screenwriter knows, like, you spend, you know, a lot of times years on a script. You know, my Animalia, I've been working on this project for 20 years. I wrote the first draft in 1999, more than 20 years, you know? I came close to making the movie twice, and finally I was like, I need to get this out there. I just need, you know, even if it's a book, I just need to do it. We very much want to also get just screenwriters on board, you know, who are looking for directors, who are looking for producers, who are looking for actors, that are looking for really great scripts, great stories, great characters. You know, we know that a lot of times the indie films are the ones that have the best characters and the really meaty roles the actors love. But a lot of times those are the same films that their agents, you know, are kind of
Yes.
top blocking. You know, because
Yeah.
they're not the biggest budgets, right?
So I get what you're both saying, because there is a sort of thing in Hollywood that, you know, if it's not big explosions blowing up, right, then, you know, they don't necessarily want it, or just like big budget, you know, even if it isn't romantic comedy, it's got to be like a certain type of thing, and they have their people and they do it their way. And yet, if you write a really expensive script as an indie filmmaker, because I have a couple of those sitting around, right, then the chances of you getting 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, 10 million, whatever it is you need is very unlikely. I mean, it's hard enough to try to get 500,000 raised. I mean, that's insane in itself. So you're sort of in this catch-22. And I do agree with what you were saying about indie films do have great characters and do have great writing, because people aren't in this formulaic box all the time. I mean, some people are, but most people are, you know, they have something really important they're saying, or you wouldn't be doing this, because it's insane.